I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. What was life like for James Potter, Sirius Black, Remus Lupin, and Peter Pettigrew at Hogwarts? Welcome to The Marauders, a Hogwarts fan fiction written by us, Raiders of the Lost podcast.
Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today we have a very special episode, something we've never done before. This is a fan fiction episode about the Marauders at Hogwarts. So James and I, we were kind of disappointed that Warner Brothers and HBO Max are not moving forward with the Marauders, but doing a reboot of the Harry Potter series. So we were like, let's write our own Marauders TV series and basically do our own fan fiction for these characters in this world that we love.
Anthony, it's just Max.
It's Max.
Just Max, the one to watch for Harry Potter. Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about the reboot of Harry Potter and making the TV series. But the Marauders, it's a no-brainer most watched TV show of all time if you make it, or most watched movie of all time.
It would top Game of Thrones.
It would absolutely decimate. It would be the most popular television show in the history of the medium. And I wish they would do it. I'm not sure why they won't. Maybe
they'll do it in the future.
Who knows?
But it seems to be something that's ripe for material. You can mine a lot out of it, and you can get 8 to 9 seasons of television. You have incredible characters that we already know and love, and then you can bring more characters into the mix that are lesser known, and then you can create characters for the world around this main four friends.
Yeah, you're right.
I was gonna say trio, but I was like, what's the quartet?
Words are hard for Anthony
Quartet.
This morning. There's something going on with his brain today. You should have had another, maybe too much coffee. But the Marauders, the great thing about it is you can create so many characters. Going back to Hogwarts, they have so many of the sets, the locations, and like you said, so many great characters that we love, as well as we're going to go over basically what was going on while the Marauders were active at Hogwarts. I mean, we have potentially, like Anthony said, 9 seasons of television. This all takes place in the 1970s. So the Marauders went to Hogwarts in 1971, so you can have 70s culture in there, 70s pop culture, as well as, guess who was active in the 1970s and rising to power for the first time?
Lord Voldemort.
Yes, he was. And also, in 1971, guess what he did? He visited Dumbledore at Hogwarts to get that Defense Against the Dark Arts position, but really to hide a Horcrux in the Room of Requirement. So season 1, we made like 3 seasons basically of an outline. Season 1,
it's really good.
Voldemort's going to Hogwarts. Season 1.
Honestly, while we were making this fan fiction story outline, I was like, I want to watch this.
This is basically a pitch to Warner Brothers for us to make this show. So if anyone knows anyone at Warner Brothers Studios, send them this episode so that we tell them we have 3 seasons written already.
But there are so many characters that we already know and love that would appear in this TV series. So obviously James, Sirius, Lily, and Snape, as well as Peter and Remus will be like the main 5 characters, but you also have...
Well, I would say James, Sirius, Lily, and Snape would be like the
leads.
The 4 leads.
The foursome, yeah.
Because then Remus and Peter would be the main supporting, because you got to remember, James and Sirius were thick as thieves. They were compared to as Fred and George as so close inseparability, so they would be huge main characters, as well as Lily has to be a main character and Snape has to be a main character based off of popularity, as well as Lily, a character that people would love to see explored in addition to Sirius and James. James, we don't know too much about him, just what we learned from Harry and his friends and people who knew him. But James and Lily are 2 characters I think people would love to learn more about.
And also, yeah, James and Sirius were pals, and then later in their first year, then they became friends with Remus, and then Peter was following Remus around, so that's how the 4 of them got together. So those 2 were friends well before they met and started hanging out with Remus and Peter. And also we have Lucius Malfoy, who was also a student at the same time. He was a little bit older. He was a prefect, and he was in his last 2 years when the boys and Lily showed up for their first 2 years.
Yeah, so that's really interesting. Lucius Malfoy would be a great kind of antagonist villain to have at Hogwarts. We need some conflict at the school, and Lucius maybe running this ragtag group of wannabe Death Eaters, all worshiping Lord Voldemort, this guy who's on the rise. All their parents know Voldemort probably, and they're Death Eaters possibly, and they're just waiting their turn to get out of Hogwarts and become Death Eaters themselves.
Yeah.
And Lucius is the leader, you could see.
This is the time during Voldemort's rise. He started really rising in 70, and then throughout the next decade was really growing in his numbers. It was really just whispers and rumors at this time. So you can imagine that not everybody knew what the Death Eaters were or who Voldemort was, but people were beginning to learn. And then the students in Hogwarts, they weren't like real Death Eaters, but they were wannabe for sure. And their parents and friends of parents were part of Voldemort's Death Eater crew. Someone who also ended up wanting to become a Death Eater was Regulus Black, Sirius's brother is a year behind him, so he would be a main character and also an antagonist force for much of this series of television because he was desperate to become a Death Eater. He really believed in the cause, and it wasn't until after he graduated from Hogwarts, learned more about Voldemort, where he was like, I want to try and stop him. Then we get the Locket sequences. So Regulus would be kind of an antagonist, especially to show the Sirius Black storyline and his family, the Black household. You get Bellatrix in there. You get his mother who hated him. And we can also see the sequence of why his mother actually burned Sirius's face off the wallpaper of that room.
Yeah, and the thing with Regulus is he would be a really great and interesting character to grow as a main character throughout the series of the TV show. So we would plan to do this from the years 1971 to 1979, explored 9 years of television. The Marauders are at Hogwarts from 1971 to 1978. That's when they leave. And then 1979 is a big year because that's the year that the Order of the Phoenix is officially created. That photo that is given to Harry, or he's shown by Sirius, right, of the Order of the Phoenix. That was taken in 1979. Also, Lily and James are married in 1979, and then Regulus, he dies in the Sea Cave in 1979. So Regulus would be a great character to explore in RAB and his origins and how he gets enticed by the dark arts throughout his time at Hogwarts, and obviously he's just graduated the year that he dies, so he's already involved with Death Eaters outside of school. So a lot of these Death Eaters you can see when they're home from Hogwarts, maybe they're getting involved with the Death Eaters, maybe they're getting involved with Voldemort, specifically Regulus, because Regulus is a very clever wizard and very powerful, I'm sure, because he's in Voldemort's circle, discovering Voldemort's secret of the Horcruxes before anyone else, before Dumbledore. Dumbledore has whispers, and I'm sure he's got ideas, but Regulus officially discovering that he's created a Horcrux. I believe that's all he ever discovered, is just the Locket in the Sea Cave that he discovers, dying with Kreacher there in his arms, in Kreacher's arms, dying in the Sea Cave would be a great season finale episode potentially, or ending of his arc in season 9.
Well, the final season could be them a couple of years out of Hogwarts, and it could eventually end with the event of Voldemort trying to kill Harry after he kills his parents, James and Lily, and the finale could be Dumbledore and crew setting up Harry with the Dursleys. That could be the end of this TV series. So you can connect it all the way from the Marauders joining Hogwarts to Harry's survival of the killing curse that we see in the opening of Sorcerer's Stone.
The problem with that is it would have to go into another year, because in 1980 is when the prophecy is made and they go into hiding. So I personally would think to end it with Lily and James getting married, Regulus dying in the Sea Cave, and then the Order of the Phoenix being photographed, like the ending of the series.
And maybe Lily finding out she's pregnant, and we'll all know it's Harry.
Exactly,
the baby.
Something like that.
That'd be a sweet ending.
Like that'd be a really good ending, because we don't have to see everything we've already seen before, but to show it the ending where Sorcerer's Stone takes off, basically going into the future. So those are some interesting points to talk about. But I think Regulus would be a super interesting character to explore some other prominent witches and wizards at Hogwarts at this time. Narcissa Black. So Bellatrix is a little older than everybody else. She's already out of school. But Narcissa would be at Hogwarts. Barty Crouch Jr. would also be at Hogwarts. So you can assume he might be on the fence about if he wants to join the Death Eaters. It's something he'd obviously be keeping a secret from his father, because his father never knew he was a Death Eater until that trial of the other guy,
the Russian wizard.
Yes.
So but Barty was a Slytherin, so you could have a whole Slytherin crew of Lucius, Severus Snape, Narcissa, and then Barty Crouch and Regulus Black. So you have a whole Slytherin squad, and we're used to that. The Gryffindors versus Slytherins, we got that in the Harry Potter series with our main crew and Malfoy's crew. So you have that same kind of setup of a group of Gryffindors and a group of Slytherins being antagonists for one another.
And the thing with this is we would want to do it where you need constant conflict, but also teenage drama. We're at school, but having these two kind of rivalry gangs. We have the Marauders, including Lily at times, and even Severus working with the Marauders at the time, which we'll get into more of, because Lily and Severus are such good friends until year 5 when they end their friendship because Severus calls her a mudblood. But then like the Marauders versus the Death Eaters, rivalries against each other at Hogwarts throughout their entire time as they're both growing in strength and powers and abilities. You know, the Marauders, as they're described, including Lily, are the most clever witches and wizards at the school at the time, but then dealing with the power and the rise of the Death Eaters and the wannabe Death Eaters gangs. It'd be fun just to have these two clashing all the time.
And on top of students, excuse me, there are some professors that we know and love. Albus Dumbledore is headmaster at this time as well. Professor McGonagall is a professor there at the time, so Minerva would be a character. And Professor Slughorn, Dumbledore grabs him in Half-Blood Prince and entices him back to Hogwarts, but he was a professor there. He was potions master there for a long time, so he would actually be the potions master during this tenure at school. And this is the year, 1971, Tom Riddle visits the school. He curses the Defense Against the Dark Arts position. So this is the beginning of every year has a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. No one can maintain that job for more than 1 year. So this is where that tradition begins.
And the thing with Albus and Dumbledore, I believe he's only been headmaster for like 3 years up until this point. So if season 1 starts in 1971, which is how we would do it, and we'll get into more details about what our seasons would look like. So season 1, 1971, the kid's coming to school. Dumbledore's been headmaster for a little while. And him and his relationship with the kids wouldn't be very strong at first. I feel like Dumbledore would obviously know of James Potter. They're both from the same area. They're both old wizard families, old blood. They all kind of know each other. Obviously, a relationship forms over time, but not immediately. It wouldn't be like with Harry that he knows him very well. But eventually, by the last couple of years of
James... Because they're from the same neighborhood.
Yes, they're from the same neighborhood.
Yeah, Godric's Hollow.
So later on in the series, maybe seasons 5, 6, 7... when Harry and the Marauders are like solving mysteries at the school and at Hogsmeade, which we are so excited to talk about. And obviously, he develops a relationship with Dumbledore because Dumbledore borrows his invisibility cloak. Later on, after he's out of school, he knows of the Peverils, and I'm sure he knows of the invisibility cloak. So with Dumbledore, we can explore the Deathly Hallows. Not specifically Horcruxes with him, but the Deathly Hallows, because this is the time when Dumbledore is curious about the Hallows still. Something he's been trying to figure out and solve his entire life is discovering all of the Hallows, knowing that James and the Peverils have this invisibility cloak he probably discovers at some point. Maybe he figures it out with James sneaking around so often. He wants to examine that cloak later on, which is why James Potter doesn't have the cloak when he's killed by Voldemort, is because Dumbledore has it, because he's examining it. So maybe Dumbledore exploring the Deathly Hallows.
So you can have a sequence where Dumbledore discovers the kids using the invisibility cloak, and he's so enamored by this cloak because it's not like the normal ones. This is a special one. It's very unique, and so gains his curiosity. Like, what is this? Oh, is this a Deathly Hallow? So you have that whole sequence that you can throw in to a couple of seasons of the show. But then also with Tom Riddle and Voldemort, he's recently becoming publicly known as Voldemort. But you can also see Voldemort creating some of his Horcruxes, and so he created a couple while at school and then a couple in his young adult years. So we can definitely see him creating a couple of Horcruxes and even finding a couple of the trinkets, because remember, he was just still fresh out of school, only a couple of years, so he might not have all 7 Horcruxes by now. So we can actually revisit some.
What do you mean, Voldemort?
Yeah.
What do you mean fresh out of school?
Like only a few years out of school.
No, he went to school in the 1940s.
40s?
Yeah,
Okay.
he's old. Like, witches and wizards are old.
They age
like
slowly,
McGonagall in the series, she's in her 70s. In the Harry Potter movies, Dumbledore's in his over 100.
But maybe we could squeeze in a couple of Horcruxes being created during this show.
It's possible, but
Yeah.
I wonder when he made them all. That's the thing.
Yeah, I don't think I could find any dates of specifically when he made them.
I'm pretty sure that up until this point, he's already made them all.
Probably.
Except for maybe Nagini. Nagini's probably the last Horcrux that he makes. Oh, wait, no, actually, Harry by accident.
Harry is the last
Nagini,
Horcrux.
then Harry are probably the last couple of Horcruxes.
The locket might have been the last one.
It's possible. No, because the locket, I'm trying to remember in the book, in the Half-Blood Prince of the Memories, because he gets the Helga Hufflepuff's cup.
Yep.
When he's at Borgin and Burke, so I believe he discovers and finds...
He takes the Hufflepuff cup from the woman who owns it at her helm.
So I'm talking about the time when he's working at Borgin and Burke is when he's discovering all the artifacts, as well as probably when he's abroad in Romania. So I think that by this time, between the years, so he probably graduated Hogwarts around the late 1940s. He's got 30 years to do all that.
But what we get to see, though, is Dumbledore mentions to him in this meeting. So Voldemort comes to Hogwarts, meets with Dumbledore. His motivation is actually hiding the diadem inside of the Room of Requirement. But Dumbledore does mention that he knows that Voldemort's been experimenting with new magic. So we can see probably in Romania, in the forests of Romania, he might have a following, he might have a small army, and we can see him pushing the boundaries of magic and trying to discover new magic while still growing his power. So we can have a lot of interesting sequences of Voldemort in his early rise.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to have that as a main kind of cross-cutting character. Maybe not season 1 or 2, but maybe as he's getting more powerful. Because if you're having a main villain like that, he has to interact somehow and eventually with the main characters, with the Marauders, and then obviously with Dumbledore at some point, potentially. But I feel like we'd have to connect that somehow to the Marauders.
We did. We'll get to it in season 1.
Yes, we did.
He's not specifically connected, but he is a goal for the villain.
And it'd be interesting just to see his rise to power, him taking over the Ministry of Magic again and taking over wizards and witches and imperiousing everyone and just taking over the world slowly, but from the perspective of him not completely being that snake-like being, even though at this point he does have snake-like features. He looks less human. He's more gaunt. He doesn't have the handsome face and appearance that he used to have when he was Tom Riddle, so he does look less human now. It would be interesting to eventually have Voldemort come in as a main player in the show.
And it could be opposite Dumbledore rather than opposite the kids, more so. You know what I mean?
In a way, like Dumbledore building his army, building the Order of the
Phoenix. Trying to fight back against this rise.
Those things like trying to have Dumbledore recruit other magical witches and creatures and wizards like the giants, maybe with the trolls somehow, and the... What are the things that live in the Forbidden Forest? The
spiders?
Not the spiders. Like
the centaurs?
The centaurs, yes. The centaurs.
I knew that's what you were thinking of, yeah.
Sorry, lots of new magical words.
We also... Hagrid should be here as well.
Hagrid... So
I'm not sure if he was gamekeeper now, but...
Look up if he was gamekeeper, because Argus Filch became caretaker of Hogwarts in the late 1960s. So Argus Filch will be a main character in the show. And Mrs. Norris we can put in there too, because she's a magical cat. We can have her live to be like 100, so why not? So have Argus Filch coming into Hogwarts as well, be at Hogwarts as well as Mrs. Norris. And also some other things going on. The Slug Club happens here. So Professor Slughorn, Potions Master, head of Slytherin House at the time, he has his Slug Club. And guess who's in the Slug Club? Lily and Snape are both members. Obviously, Lily, we learn about in The Half-Blood Prince, was one of Professor Slughorn's favorite students. And we even have that story of when Harry's getting the memory from Slughorn about the memory of the Horcrux questions being asked by Tom Riddle in his youth of Slughorn that he obviously altered so that no one could see the memory for real. And he confesses to Harry that one day he came down to his classroom and there's that little, what was it, a little gold, a fish bowl, and there was a lily, a beautiful piece of magic happened, and a fish appeared. And it was a lily, which was obviously a gift from Lily. So maybe we can even have Lily show her giving that to Slughorn and making that little gift for Slughorn on her desk. I think that would be a great sequence like season 3 or 4.
Absolutely. Hagrid, I can't find anything about him being at Hogwarts during this tenure.
We could put him in there.
But we could throw him in there.
Yeah.
But he was heavily involved in the Wizarding War, the first Wizarding War. So it makes sense for Albus to put him there as the gamekeeper when he's much younger.
Yeah. And again, Anthony said, new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher every year, which means we can have great eclectic castings and characters every season of the show for new positions. Because, like Anthony said, Voldemort cursed the position, and they haven't been able to fill it since. And that's a recurring theme for like 40 years or 30 years going into the 1990s when the other kids are at school. So we can have dark characters come in. We can have bumbling buffoons like Gilderoy Lockhart come in, who actually eventually comes to Hogwarts in 1975 as a character. So 1975, Gilderoy's coming to school, and we can have him as a fun like cameo character here and there. But the opportunity to have great characters for the Defense Against the Dark Arts position every season is a great strength to this show.
And also, the Whomping Willow will be planted in the first season of this show. So the Whomping Willow was planted for Remus Lupin by Dumbledore. So we're going to be able to see the Whomping Willow in this entire series as well. And we're also going to have lots of opportunity to create lots of other students and characters, antagonists, villains, and friends. There's actually a couple of friends that the Marauders had in school. We found Patricia Rakepick. She would be a Hufflepuff, and in the Marauders Hogwarts years, she was often affiliated with them and would often share adventures with them. She also shared their dislike for Snape, and she also Patricia was aware of the Marauders map. This
They have a rap song?
Yeah. Yo, it's the Marauders rap.
That's Michael Scott vibes.
So she must have been very close with them for them to reveal the map to her.
Also at Hogwarts, Kingsley Shacklebolt is at Hogwarts. He was in Gryffindor House, but I think with this show, obviously he's going to be in it for sure, but I would love to incorporate characters from different houses besides Slytherin and Gryffindor as main players and main companions for specific things. Now, I think we could take a lot from Hogwarts Legacy in terms of, excuse me, having great characters from Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff and even other houses that help the Marauders, help Lily, help Snape here and there, solving mysteries. If they need someone that's great at arithmancy or they need someone that's great at specific charms or spells, maybe that person is a frequent collaborator in mischief with them from House Hufflepuff, from Ravenclaw. I said that like Game of Thrones. But I think because so many people, you're in Ravenclaw.
Oh, yeah.
There are plenty of people in Ravenclaw that love Ravenclaw. Plenty of people in Hufflepuff that love Hufflepuff, and really all the Hufflepuffs ever got was Cedric Diggory, and he met his doom by the end of the movie.
My boy!
So I think incorporating great characters from other houses as main companions and characters in the plots is really important to this, because that's something that we didn't really get in the movies and really the books either. I guess Cho Chang would be a main player for the movies, but she's really Goblet of Fire, that's it, and then Order of the Phoenix, kind of that's all Cho Chang
mostly
really
Gryffindors.
is. But it's mostly Gryffindors and Slytherin for the plots of the movies. Obviously, it would be the main plots of the show, Slytherins and Gryffindors, but let's get some Hufflepuffs and Ravenclaws in there too, so we can create characters, original characters from these houses to help the Marauders, I'm saying the Boston accent's coming out, the Marauders, as well as Lily to solve mysteries, as well as Snape and everything.
Well, Lily, you got to remember, was told, we were told multiple times in the books, she was the brightest witch of her age, so she's the smartest and most capable witch in Hogwarts. So she's going to have to be instrumental for solving lots of these mysteries, going on these adventures with the Marauders. So it wouldn't just be the Marauders. Lily.
That's why I keep saying, and the Marauders and Lily.
Yeah, Marauders and Lily would have a major part to play, kind of like a Hermione-like character, but also she might be the most talented witch out of all of them. James was very talented as well, but she's the most intelligent by far.
Yeah, so all the books always say that Lily, James, Severus, and Sirius were the most clever witches and wizards at school at the time of their years. So the four of them, they have to show extreme promise with their magical abilities.
Because Severus especially, he was actually famous. He was well known amongst his peers for creating spells, and obviously we get the spell book in Half-Blood Prince. We learned that he was a half-blood. He called himself the Half-Blood Prince.
Book, bro.
Potions book. That was his moniker for himself. And so Sectum Sepra wasn't the only spell he created. He discovered and created many spells, so he was extremely talented.
Levi Corpus is one of the spells that he created and discovered, which became like a fad spell. Like I remember in the books, Remus talks about Harry, how like spells come and go. They're like, it's like jargon or words, that
ironically, that's how James bullies him in the memory by doing Levi Corpus of hanging him upside down and embarrassing him in front of everyone.
Exactly. So I think with Lily and the Marauders, obviously they're in House Gryffindor. Gryffindor House. Game of
House Stark.
House of the North. So I feel like every time the Marauders are going to go on an adventure to cause mayhem, to solve a mystery, to get up to no good, Lily's kind of in the corner of the room, following them around, making sure they don't do anything too crazy, sort of accompanying them in a lot of these situations.
If you two don't mind.
Yeah, so I think she's got to be like a Hermione character, and she's got to be a main lead, and she's got to be involved with pretty much everything they're doing to an extent.
Absolutely.
Or preventing them from getting in too much trouble, kind of like the parent of the group in a lot of ways, but also helping solve a lot of the mysteries, because the show, every season, we don't have Voldemort as the main villain against the Marauders. So what are we going to do? We're going to make conflicts in Hogwarts, in Hogsmeade, around the Wizarding World, around the school, mysteries at school, mysteries at Hogsmeade, mystery villains that need to be stopped in the Marauders.
But even other students.
Yes. But the Marauders and Lily and Severus at times solving these mysteries together at the end of each season, basically.
How about we start with the first season?
Let's do it, man.
Yeah, let's go into it.
Let's go to 1971. This is going to be great. Well, let's first talk about major events in 1971. So, obviously, they go to school, Hogwarts Express. This is where James and Sirius meet, but they're also sharing a compartment with Lily and Snape. And remember, Lily and Snape are already friends. They grew up in the same neighborhood. which was a Muggle neighborhood. And that's where Snape spied on Lily and discovered that she had magical abilities, unlike her sister Petunia. They became close friends from the age of 9 to 11 when they both go to school. Unfortunately for Snape, Lily gets put in Gryffindor and Snape gets put in Slytherin, obviously.
So this show can open with a bunch of great openings for each of these main characters. Lily with her sister and her parents, so she's dealing with Petunia's jealousy. That could be like her opening. And then Snape obviously having a huge crush on Lily, but James... Sirius. So with Sirius, we get to see how difficult his household is for him and how much he's hated by both his cousin and his mother. And Regulus is probably on their side as well. So the Sirius Black's home is a tough place for him to be, very much like Harry Potter with the Dursleys' home. James Potter, we don't know much about his home, but we do know he probably had a very good upbringing and a quiet, nice home. So his parents in Godric's Hollow, we can probably assume that Dumbledore knows the Potters very well as family friends. They're descended from the Peverells, so he's probably already known Dumbledore in some capacity from the neighborhood. Maybe his parents bring him over to Dumbledore's house like once every year for like dinner or something. So
maybe he babysits James.
Yeah. So it's very safe.
Uncle Dumbledore.
Yeah, it's safe to assume that James Potter already knows Dumbledore, as opposed to him being this kind of like Oz-like figure to every student when they first get to Hogwarts. Oh, it's Dumbledore. He probably already has a relationship with Dumbledore in some capacity.
Yeah, that's a smart thing to do, but they're not close.
No, yeah, obviously.
They're just
He's a kid.
They're family friends.
Yeah.
Like their families know each other.
They go to Dumbledore's house for barbecues.
And so James has a happy upbringing. You know, he's the only child, though. He doesn't have any brothers or sisters. And then Sirius, obviously, like Anthony said, going up to Remus. Remus had gotten bit by Fenrir Greyback when he was 9 years old. So that's when he became a werewolf. So we can talk about and explore his home life, his parents dealing with the affliction of him being a 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and 11-year-old werewolf going to school.
Yeah, maybe the parents are extremely worried, but Dumbledore has assured them that he's going to take care of Remus and make sure everything's okay. So
we should open up with Dumbledore at Remus's house.
That's a good opening, yeah.
Or McGonagall at Remus's house.
So one of the professors assuring the Lupins that your son's going to be okay. Well, we have this under control. We want him to go to school and have a normal life. So we're going to make sure that he's safe and that nobody comes to harm when he has his outbreaks as a werewolf. So that's something that we can just throw into Remus's opening scene as well.
Explaining the Whomping Willow would be planted there.
That's
having Dumbledore there would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
That'd be a good opening.
Why not?
I feel like he would be there for that. I feel like he would be
It's
there.
his plan to do the Whomping Willow,
and then Peter Pettigrew, you can only imagine what his household was like, so we can create something pretty...
So he needs to be someone who is desperate to be welcomed, so his home...
Broken home.
He needs to be a broken home, and he needs to be a child who has kind of been disillusioned and, in a way, abused by his parents
Neglected,
or family,
for sure.
Because that's why he's so desperate and clings on to the Death Eaters and then Voldemort out of fear, but he's also so desperate to follow the Marauders around. He wasn't so much part of the crew as he was just kind of always there. He was part of the crew, but like Peter was always like, it was the three of them and then Peter is the best way to look at it. They didn't really look at him as like an equal, but he was a loyal friend at the time.
Yeah, he wasn't close to them when it comes to intelligence and magical abilities, but the thing with Peter, because we all know that he eventually turns and betrays his friends, he was their great friend for sure. However, we have to show that his loyalties could easily be swayed depending on who has the most power. So I think for him, he's obsessed with clinging to people who are powerful. So we can show him going back and forth between being maybe enticed by the Death Eaters secretly in terms of what they're doing.
He might even aid Lucius a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that would be a smart thing to do, to show him.
Because Lucius will be 6th year when the kids get in there.
5th year.
5th year. So he'll be much older, and he'll be a leader of the Death Eater crew, of the Death Eater kids. And so they'll probably go to Peter to try and get information or try to get something on the Marauders.
So episode 1 showing them at their homes, all the main characters, and then getting them onto the Hogwarts Express. And this is important because episode 1, Hogwarts Express, Sirius and James meet for the first time. They walk and sit into the same compartment together. And then also who's in that same train compartment is Lily and Snape. And this is where the four of them all officially meet. Again, Snape and Lily already know each other. They're already friends. But this is where James and Sirius and Snape have their first dispute, where they're talking about what that best house is at Hogwarts. And obviously Snape thinks Slytherin is the best. And obviously James thinks Gryffindor is the best. And even, I'm sure we could put something in there where James and Sirius, their family, they've heard of their others' families. They've heard of the Blacks. The Potters know who the Blacks are. They're this dark wizard family. And then the Blacks know of the Potters. So I bet you as soon as James found out that Sirius was a Black, he's like, oh, you're a Black? I shouldn't be talking to you. But then,
the family rivalry already.
But then he obviously realized that Sirius isn't really a Black. He wants to be a Gryffindor. And so this is where their first fight and first dispute with Snape comes from, is arguing over the best house.
And then also you can throw in, Snape was hoping that Lily would be put in Slytherin house. That was his hope and desire. And when she was sorted into Gryffindor, he was extremely disappointed because it meant that they were going to spend much less time together than they could have. So you can show that Snape was maybe trying to convince Lily, because she was Lily's unaware. She's a fish out of water. She doesn't really know much about the history of wizards. So she doesn't understand the houses really. So he might have been enticing her and talking to her about Slytherin before the train sequence. Like, Slytherin's the best when they're hanging out in the park and in their neighborhood, saying he wants to be in Slytherin, she should be in Slytherin too. She might already have an affectation towards Slytherin, unawares that it's actually not the right house for her.
It's unfortunate for Snape because he's got this huge crush on Lily, they're friends, and they get put in different houses. So we have to show that struggle for Snape, what he's going through with Lily being put in Gryffindor, meaning obviously they'll stay friends, and they stay friends until year 5, but then eventually they don't stay friends. So since Lily's in Gryffindor and he's in Slytherin, they don't spend a lot of time together outside of classes.
Just a couple
of dormitories.
Walking the hallways
together.
together.
Hallways, and then weekends and nights. I'm sure they see each other plenty.
Yeah.
But we also have to show Snape making other friends with the Slytherins, because basically Slytherins are only friends with Slytherins in Hogwarts.
Yeah, they pretty much stay in their own little bubble in their clique.
And this will lead to eventually Snape, I'm sure, being enticed by the dark arts, being enticed by these wannabe Death Eaters, and probably...
And Lucius will be, when he gets into Slytherin Common Room, Lucius will be even though he's not the oldest, he's probably the leader of Slytherins.
And I think that with the Death Eaters specifically, it's a great opportunity to show peer pressure, because this is going to be a teen show, a teen drama. We have to show teen elements of life. We can show things that they never do in the movies, like partying, maybe some more of hookup culture and dating and relationships and breakups and making out in the room of requirement, or something like the snogging often, but also teen drama. And something specifically with peer pressure, maybe not having drugs, because I don't think Warner Brothers would want us to explore magical drugs and herbs, even though they would have some lit-ass drugs for sure.
Yeah.
But exploring peer pressure in the form of the dark arts, being peer pressured into maybe using dark spells on other students or creatures and being enticed by that. So the peer pressure maybe is what eventually convinces Snape to want to become a Death Eater, as well as his broken home as well, because he's got just his mother.
It's on top of that, the bullying he receives from James and Sirius, who often bully him and gang up on him. That is also something that causes him to turn against the light and to embrace the darkness of the Death Eaters.
The bullying is something that we have to figure a way to work around, because of course James is known for being highly arrogant and a bully to specifically Severus and other kids at school.
That's the thing. Harry's a much better human being than James was in a lot of ways, but also James was great, but I would say James had some problems.
He did have problems. So he's got this bullying problem, and Sirius, he's a bully too, but James is more of the leader of the crew and the bullying kids around school and hexing kids and hexing Snape and everything, and them going back and forth. So we have to make James a little more likable and more empathetic, so maybe we figure out a way to tone down the bullying to an extent so it's still there, but maybe showing why he's doing it. Maybe we focus it only on him doing it to Slytherins that are wronging him or wronging other kids at school.
It could be more of a back and forth with him and Snape. So
Snape, that occurs too, but we have to show he was a bully. We can't deny that. So maybe make him more likable, because the books always portray him as a dick at school until he gets older. When he's 6th year, that's when he starts to wisen up and he starts to realize that, I've been a jerk. I really like Lily Evans.
Lily changes him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he has to be a jerk to an extent, but also we have to make him likable at the same time.
And on top of that, there is kind of like a rivalry and tension between him and Lily, because Lily is Snape's best friend, and so she would be against. She's kind of against James for much of the early years because of how he treats Severus. So even though they're in the same house, and even though they're going on these adventures together, and she's going to be part of the Marauders when they solve their mysteries, there is going to be a tension between the two of them that will, over the course of the next few years, grow into a relationship. Obviously, we all know, but it's not going to start out well, and it's going to start out with them kind of hating. Like she kind of hates him in a way.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But
So
she has to police the Marauders because they're always getting up into no
Yeah.
good, and they're always getting
She doesn't
points.
want to lose the House Cup.
Yeah, they're taking away points from the House Cup every week. They're getting into trouble because the Marauders are always described as seldom spending a night in the dormitory, basically, just always getting up to no good. And also, they have more knowledge of the castle than anybody, and that's how they're eventually able to make the Marauders map, which we'll eventually talk about in a little bit.
Now let's get to our main conflict idea for the first season.
Well, hold on. There's a couple other things about
right.
season 1. So, Whomping Willow being planted for sure. Quidditch. Gryffindor wins the Quidditch Cup in season 1, but also James is on the team his first year. Now, the movies have James as a seeker. However, James was actually a chaser. So, we can have James being a first-year starter chaser on the Quidditch team.
You won't make a fool of yourself. It's in your blood.
Now, Anthony can get into the main plot.
So, again, like we said, Voldemort's rising, but he's not going to be involved in the conflicts of these kids at school. However, for each season, we think there's a lot of opportunity for having really interesting conflicts, villains, and mysteries that the crew has to solve. So the no-brainer for the first season has to be the mystery of the werewolf or this monster. And so we have this idea of there could be these stories every month of an animal getting attacked by a monster on the Hogwarts grounds or someone in Hogsmeade getting attacked. And this will ultimately be Remus having problems with when he turns into a werewolf being controlled. Obviously, this is why they plant the Whomping Willow that leads with the tunnel into the Shrieking Shack. But even though it's not really how it goes in the books, to create the conflict of this series, you can have the werewolf situation working badly, of him affecting the world around him with attacks. And so it could be this mystery of the kids are trying to solve what is this monster that keeps attacking people and animals, while Remus is trying to keep it hidden that he's a werewolf. He doesn't want anybody to know. So we have a great conflict and a mystery for the kids to solve.
What if there's also another werewolf operating around Hogsmeade that's people eventually, maybe Remus is worried people are going to think it's him.
Yeah.
Because that's potential. Because Remus with the Shrieking Shack is where he goes to have his transformations, and we can have the mystery of the Shrieking Shack up.
Here's how you do it. Lucius maybe is setting him free.
It's possible, yeah. That's a good idea. But also the haunting of the Shrieking Shack has to start here because the Shrieking Shack wasn't a haunted place, but eventually becomes the most haunted dwelling in Britain because of the howling and the screaming that comes from it every full moon, basically. But no one's really putting these things together. But the mystery of this potential monster or werewolf is something that the boys and Lily eventually have to solve. Now, Snape doesn't discover this yet because Snape eventually learns of Lupin being a werewolf later on when Sirius plays that trick on him. So that'd be maybe
Mid-years?
No, maybe season 3 or 4. So this is something that Snape doesn't discover till later on.
Yeah.
Because this isn't until they're anime guy that Snape goes to find out. This is where Sirius tells him, go and discover, in the Shrieking Shack, all you have to do is press this button underneath the tree. And that's when James saves Snape. So that happens later on in the series.
And then it works because the kids, James and Sirius, weren't great friends with Remus and Peter right away. So there can be a little bit of a distance between them, and then the first season can be the Marauders really coming together by the end of the season. So it makes sense, and also Remus is trying to hide that he is a werewolf, so then he wouldn't really be involved in the kids trying to solve the mystery. He might be avoiding it. And maybe even the kids at this point, for the most of the first season, aren't really that great friends with Remus. He's a little odd. He often looks sickly, and he seems to be keeping secrets and hiding things from people.
He's a loner.
He's a loner, so it makes sense that Sirius, James, and Lily could be the ones trying to solve the mystery of the werewolf without Remus and Peter really understanding what they're doing. And then by the end of the season, that's where the friendship between the 5 of them really becomes solid.
In the canon, well, not Lily.
Yeah.
Lily's friends with Remus for sure, because we have that great line in Prisoner of Azkaban where Remus says, "Your mother was there at a time when few others were." So I think Lily has to discover the secret. She figures it out.
Yeah.
She knows that Remus is a werewolf, but I think maybe she's trying to protect Remus at the same time, so we can show a friendship between Remus and Lily because they're all in Gryffindor still. And I think with Remus, what was I about to say? So with hold on. What were we just saying before I said that?
You're on a roll. I was talking about Lily and Remus, and then Remus being a loner,
Lily
and the kid's not really being friends with him until the end of the season.
I forgot what I was gonna say. God damn it! Hold on.
No worries. But I think it would be interesting. You can get around because we don't want Remus to be like out of control because it wouldn't make sense for Dumbledore to set it up and not be secure in the Shrieking Shack.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like there has to be another werewolf operating around.
It's either that or Lucius could be letting the werewolf out.
Okay.
That makes sense.
But there's no canon specifically of Remus getting out, but we can change canon because we are going to change canon in the season because this is what I was going to say. So the boys discover that Remus is a werewolf according to the canon in 1972 in year 2. However, we're going to change it to the finale of season 1. We're going to speed things up in terms of big moments with the Marauders because we got to get the show rolling, you know?
We got to, yeah. So they all end up finally becoming anime guy by year 4. But
sooner than that.
Sooner, but we're going to make it much sooner than that.
Okay, yeah. So the finale basically is going to be the boys seeing Remus being taken to the Whomping Willow by Madame Pomfrey and being curious, then sneaking to the Shrieking Shack using the invisibility cloak. The invisibility cloak is going to be used very often in the show. And then Remus turning in front of them, and they eventually subdue him, but this would be like a great horror finale. Obviously, Lily's going to be there as well. And he turns human again. But
my guess, what would be cool is that Lily protects Remus, knowing that it's Remus, the werewolf, when the kids were maybe going to kill him.
Yes, that's actually a good
idea.
idea.
So Lily stops them from killing him, saying it's Remus, and then he eventually turns back to human form. So Lily, I think it would be good if she saves Remus, where the boys were trying to be heroic. The boys were trying to kill this monster to become heroes. But Lily's like, you're wrong. This isn't what you think it is.
That's actually a good idea. That's a really good idea.
You hearing Warner Brothers? You listening? Listen, Warner Brothers.
So Lily's gonna save Remus and prevent the boys from harming him, and then Remus turns back into human when the moon goes away, and they all discover like you're a werewolf. And then Lily can be like, yeah, wasn't it obvious? Disappears every full moon, you dummies. So something like that would be like the finale of their story, but also. I wonder if we end season 1 with Voldemort visiting Dumbledore or do that like midway through the season.
I would like to see it midway. It would be a fun thing to see him actually going into the room of requirement and then just seeing where he places the diadem.
That would be season
awesome.
1. Voldemort's coming to Hogwarts. That's so cool.
Yeah, and maybe even the kids run into him, maybe. Like in the hallway, like they're chatting and they're walking and talking and they bump into him around a corner, kind of like the kids do with Snape a couple of times. Imagine if they bump into Tom Riddle and he says a couple of lines with them. So it could be like when early years with the kids and Snape.
And like he looks at James. Yeah. James looks at him. He's like, I'm going to kill you, bro. I'm going to kill you in 10 years.
I mean, that's fascinating. That'd be really cool.
So that's basically the season 1 arc that we have.
But it ends with the train ride home.
Yeah, train ride home, but...
I'm not going home.
Not really. Season 1, Mystery of the Werewolf, and then speeding up the reveal of Remus being a werewolf.
I want to watch it.
It'd be awesome. It would be excellent.
But it gets better with season 2, guys.
Now let's take a break really quick and let everybody know how to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast. So you can either become a patron at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. It's a subscription-based form of support. Every single member of Patreon has access to 2 weekly bonus episodes of the show. So join today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings on Spotify and Apple. They're really important for us to get seen and discovered by new listeners on all of the platforms. They really help the show grow. You can also help us grow by sharing us with your family members and friends. It's the best way for a podcast to grow is word of mouth. Send this episode to any Harry Potter fans, Wizarding World fans you have. Let them know that we came up with some cool ideas for the Marauders, which is something that should get made into a show or movie. So again, thank you so much for supporting our show.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com, the #1 place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get 10% off your order right now. They have a huge selection of pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library, as well as so many options for the Harry Potter franchise. So if you want to decorate your home with some Harry Potter stuff or get a Harry Potter poster for the movie lover in your life, be sure to use our promo code at movieposters.com, Raiders10. That'll get you 10% off your order right now.
So season 2, let's get into of the Marauders.
Sorry, your name tag, your tag is showing.
What tag?
On the back.
On the back?
Yeah.
Oh.
It looks,
Sorry, thanks.
much better.
Just tell me next time.
I didn't want to interrupt you. We were on a roll.
It's a podcast, bro.
All right.
You can say, hey, man, your tag's sticking out. Oh, thanks. I'll fix it. It's a 2-hour episode.
No, I ruined it.
I'm going to edit it out now. No big deal. So season 2. We have a great new plot, as well as the kids obviously know now that Remus is a werewolf, and maybe Sirius or James over the summer have decided, with correspondence, that we're going to figure out how to become anime guy, which is going to be a very difficult task. Now, in the books and the lore, it takes them 3 years to figure this out, and they don't do it until, I believe, year 5.
Year 5. But so it takes, some of them are faster than others. By year 5, all of them can do it. Peter was probably the last one.
He needed the most help.
Yeah, but I'm guessing maybe James was the first one to be able to do it. So what we could do is we open with Sirius and James. Sirius is at home. His family sucks. They're being like the Dursleys. And so he runs away from home and goes to the Potter's house in Godric's Hollow to spend a few weeks there before Hogwarts. And this could be where he is trying to figure out, where James is trying to become anime guy, but he keeps failing.
Well, he's reading about it
Yeah.
because he can't perform magic.
So
yet.
he and Sirius are trying to figure it out for James to do.
So that's something we can do every opening of every season, is just like Harry used to always go to the Weasleys before school started, have Sirius go to the Potters before school starts. And eventually, 6 years when he officially leaves his home and starts to live with the Potters full time.
And then with Lily and Snape, same neighborhood as well, so they'll be spending summer breaks together, so we can have a sequence with them opening this season as well.
And so we'll also be going back to school, of course. And Voldemort's rise will be going up more and more. So
Rumblings.
every season, his rise to power will get more powerful, more scary, and it'll eventually feel like the movie series where movie 4, 5, 6, 7, you're really feeling the weight of Voldemort and the Death Eaters in the world. So more rumblings of news about him, clippings from the Daily Prophet.
Maybe even Snape sees with the adults, with his parents or with other parents in the area. Maybe he listens in on a meeting between Death Eaters.
It's possible,
that's
yeah.
possible.
It's possible. And so Snape will start to be enticed by this Death Eater gang at school for sure. While he's there, we have a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher for sure, because it's a new year. Whoever was
Our idea was
yeah.
our idea was that the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher was in the first year was a Gilderoy Lockhart type that thought that they could take on the werewolf, but ends up failing miserably.
Yeah.
And then they're horrified and never want to return to the position again. So now we have a new one.
Okay, so yeah, we forgot to bring that up in season 1. So maybe the boys, they don't follow Remus, but they see the professor
Yes.
going to solve
Yeah.
the mystery of the werewolf.
Exactly.
Like a
It's
professor,
very much like Gilderoy and Chamber.
a professor who overestimates their abilities. And so that's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So that's where they get into trouble with the werewolf. So we have a new Dada teacher coming in. We got to figure out who that's going to be. And Snape begins to also hide his ambitions of being a Death Eater from Lily, keeping secrets from her. But again, he's starting to become closer with his Slytherin friends.
And I think this is a time where Lucius is in his last year.
I think so, yeah.
This is his 7th year. Lucius, in our mind, is going to be the main antagonist of this season. We'll get to why more specifically in a little bit. But at this point, it seems like it would be really believable that Lucius is growing. He's like solidifying the Death Eater school gang. And so maybe Snape is seeing, like, there are members of this crew. He's not in it yet, but he would like to join the crew eventually. And so what's going to happen is Lucius is going to ask for Snape's help multiple times in this season to prove his worth, to get initiated into the school's Death Eater squad. And also, we have another new Slytherin. We have Regulus Black. Sirius's younger brother will join the Slytherin house this year. So Snape and Regulus, we can imagine, might be friends because they're closer in age than Snape is with the other Death Eaters at school.
And Lucius, we could even argue, and maybe he's already a Death Eater.
He could be, yeah.
He's his final year. And the thing with Lucius is, the story with Harry Potter and all these older people that are main players in his story, but during the first Wizarding World, they were all so young. And Lucius was such a devout follower of Voldemort, he has to have a relation with Voldemort by now, outside of school. He has to, and then he leaves school, and Voldemort's dead a year later, but he was his most devout follower. He says, even you, Lucius, when he comes back to the cemetery, when he's back in his full form. So I feel like Lucius has to have a relationship. So maybe we open the season where he becomes a Death Eater from Voldemort. Voldemort gives him his tattoo, his Death Eater tattoo, and it's something that he's hiding at school.
Okay, so this is how we do it. We forgot to talk about Narcissa Black. So Narcissa Black is a year behind Lucius, so she's just 6th year in this season, but she's heavily involved in the first season. So with Sirius Black's opening with the Black household, we could get Lucius visiting Narcissa.
Oh, they're dating. Yeah, they're
at
dating.
home.
They're dating. Yeah,
They're dating by now. We can get him visiting. Maybe this is where Sirius learns that Lucius has finally been welcomed into the real Death Eaters.
Ooh, I like that.
And also we get to see Bellatrix Lestrange. So Bellatrix Lestrange is older than all than the Blacks and Malfoys. She graduated Hogwarts in '69, 2 years before the Marauders get there. So we could show that we can show Bellatrix in the second season opening for Sirius Black, and then Sirius Black has the opposite reaction to his brother Regulus. Regulus thinks this is exciting, and Sirius wants to get out of there. So that could be the main motivation for Sirius running away to the Potter's
Oh,
home.
what a great opening to season 2.
You listening to Warner Brothers?
Season 2 opening with Lucius being initiated into the Death Eaters by Voldemort himself,
Yes.
with Narcissa there, with Bella there, and with Sirius and Regulus watching
And then
behind closed doors, like through a keyhole.
And the Black parents. So
Oh, man.
Sirius
And other
Black's
Death
parents,
Eaters.
yeah.
Dude, that
Like
would be
Sirius's mom would be like thrilled about it.
that's awesome.
And hope that you could have seen where Sirius's mom and dad would be like, hopefully Narcissa will be welcomed as a Death Eater soon.
That.
That's awesome.
So then now yeah, because Lucius has to be a Death Eater.
Yeah,
he's old
enough.
at Hogwarts.
He's 17. He's old enough.
He has to
Yeah.
be. But the thing with Lucius is he's great at keeping secrets, and he's going to be secretly the main antagonist at Hogwarts, and he's going to get up to no good, but he never gets caught, and he's good at covering his tracks. That's why he graduates as he's a prefect. I'm sure he might have been head boy, possibly.
I'm not sure about head boy, but
Maybe not.
prefect.
He was a prefect,
Yeah.
but he was graduated high in his class for sure. So he's going to cover his tracks really well. He never gets caught for the mischief and mayhem he causes at Hogwarts in season 2.
And by now, so the Marauders are a crew now. So when James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter arrive at Hogwarts, it's kind of like after Sorcerer's Stone, this is a crew. So this is a foursome. They're all close friends. And this is when, as opposed to season 1, when they were split into 2 pairs, now they're always a foursome. They're always together. They're always doing things together. And this is when they start sneaking around as a group of 4, with Lily probably in and out as well.
And we're going to have a main mystery for season 2 where Lucius is in search for a dark artifact for Lord Voldemort, which is hidden somewhere at Hogwarts. And it's going to be similar to like the Harry Potter games, where Lucius, throughout the course of the season, is trying to discover the location of this dark artifact, going through the mysteries of Hogwarts. It's going to be pretty cool because he has advanced magical abilities at this point as a final year at Hogwarts. Trials, tribulations, secret things, just like think of Hogwarts Legacy or the other Hogwarts games, where discovering these chambers and having to do these tests to gain access to this artifact or discover where it is.
And this is where Lucius is going to seek Snape's help, because Snape is a brilliant mind with potions and with spells and charms. So Lucius, I would say, is a less powerful wizard than Snape ever was.
And Snape is only
Yeah.
year 2, but he's that advanced.
Exactly. Snape was a genius student. So Lucius is going to be seeking Snape's help, and this will be Snape's initiation into the Death Eaters to prove himself. But also, we're going to get this back and forth with Snape and Lily. Lily and the other Gryffindors and students are beginning to hear rumblings of Death Eaters at school, and Lily's going to be put off by her best friend Snape hanging out with these people and spending a lot of time with them, thinking that he wants to join. And so Snape is going to be divided between 2 worlds, the dark and the light. Lily's the light, and then Lucius and the Death Eaters are the dark. So he's going to be pulled in both directions, but he's going to, through his victimization, being a bully, and then struggling to fit in with anyone, desperate for a group, he's going to end up siding with Lucius out of desperation to become a Death Eater and join this something like a greater cause. So Lucius is going to use Snape for help finding this artifact. So we wanted to tie it to Slytherin, and we wanted it to be an artifact that was different from anything we've seen in the books. So we came up with this idea of this powerful magical object being Salazar Slytherin's dagger.
No, Merlin's
dagger.
Yeah.
And so Merlin's dagger is hidden somewhere outside of the Hogwarts grounds, and Lucius is trying to find it. And the Marauders, because they're always suspicious of Slytherins, are eventually going to hear rumblings and whispers and be suspicious of what's going on. What are these Slytherin kids always doing? What's Snape up to?
But also things are happening at school where the politics of the time are anti-Muggle-born witches and wizards. That's the main politics, discrimination. So we can have attacks being ordered out on Muggle-born students at Hogwarts that the Marauders are trying to figure out what's happening to these kids. They're not getting killed, but maybe serious things are happening to them.
You can imagine that the real Death Eaters have told Lucius to do some crazy stuff to students at Hogwarts.
Yeah, prove yourself, basically.
And begin the cause for dark wizards to grow interest in this.
So it's similar to when Draco gets the mission from Voldemort to kill Dumbledore in Half-Blood Prince, which he can't do. He's given Lucius a mission to find this hidden dagger of magical properties that will make him invincible.
And we imagine this dagger, it's so powerful that it would be like unimaginable powerful force for Voldemort to take on, which would make his army undefeatable by Dumbledore and his gang. So the stakes are really high. So Voldemort's not involved. Lucius is doing this as a ploy to gain Voldemort's favor. So it's not like Voldemort's like, there's a magical object hidden there, find it for me. Lucius has taken it upon himself as a way to prove himself to the other Death Eaters and to prove himself as a loyal servant to Voldemort. I'm going to find this dagger. Maybe Lucius discovers it in a book, in research, or maybe there's a story about it that a teacher tells to the students in the class about this famous dagger. And then Lucius is like, I'm going to find this. I'm going to bring it to Voldemort. He's going to make me his most loyal servant, his number 2. So that's the motivation. So Voldemort's not the villain, but the stakes are Voldemort eventually getting this weapon from Lucius.
And the finale basically is going to be the dagger is actually in the Forbidden Forest in a cave. It's got spiders. It's got Inferi. We have a battle between the Marauders and Lily versus the Death Eaters. Snape's around there, but he doesn't want to choose sides yet. But he's also helped Lucius get to this point, basically, so he's a main player. But this big finale of these two gangs going against each other in a cave in the Forbidden Forest, it's going to be epic.
Sign me up, man.
And also Lucius gets out of there too, and they cover his tracks for him to get out clean, basically, of nothing, like not getting into trouble.
Exactly. So there will be inquiries will be made. Other Death Eater students will get in trouble and get expelled, but Lucius covered his tracks. He's the kind of villain that never gets caught, never gets in trouble.
And they don't rat on him.
Exactly. They prove their loyalty. So Lucius gets off scot-free, but there could be a cool conversation between Dumbledore and Lucius. Lucius is done with school, and there could be kind of like a warning Dumbledore gives Lucius, and Lucius there can be talk about Voldemort. And there could be an epic final conversation between the two of them in the finale episode, after the events, after the climax, during the resolution stage of the story.
After graduation.
Exactly,
yeah.
Where Dumbledore confronts Lucius, and it could be a great back and forth, reminiscent of the back and forth at the end of Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, and I feel like season 2, we should have some fun stuff with the Marauders and Lily, like doing things like taking Polyjuice Potion to try to figure out some secrets or some mysteries, as well as the boys almost become anime guy. Maybe they can transform in armor or something like that.
There could be a funny sequence for sure.
But they can't do it yet, so eventually they'll become anime guy going to season 3.
And also going to classes, charms, potions, Defense Against Dark Arts, history. So we can have a lot of fun. Herbology.
Quidditch. All the normal stuff.
Exactly. So we get all the beats that you want in a school year at Hogwarts.
Now, season 3 is things really start to get cooking, because we have 3 main events that we're putting into season 3 for the Marauders that technically don't happen in year 3, but we're speeding it up.
This is our show.
It's our show. We can do whatever we want. So season 3, obviously opening very similar to the other ones, but this is also the season that the boys officially become anime guy, so that they can accompany Lupin on his transformations as a werewolf in the Shrieking Shack. But then also, season 3, they get to start going to Hogsmeade, which will relate to our big mystery of this season.
Now, the openings are going to be pretty similar to the other seasons, with the kids at home preparing for Hogwarts. However, we had this really interesting idea. So the crew made the Marauders map in their 4th year, but we sped it up to third year just to get the ball rolling. And so there's a reason why they created the map, and it's because they caught doing something nefarious. So our idea is the kids, they're doing pretty well sneaking about the castle without getting into trouble. However, during this outing at Hogsmeade, they go to Hogsmeade one night using the cloak. They sneak into the Hog's Head, steal some butterbeer, steal some food, and they start eating and drinking in an alleyway in Hogsmeade. Then they hear the rumblings of something going on. So what's happening is our villain for season 3 is a dark wizard spirit.
Witch.
The dark witch's spirit, which is trying to come back to life in full force through the use of a Horcrux reminiscent of Sorcerer's Stone with Professor Quirrell and Voldemort. So we have this idea of there's a shopkeeper at Hogsmeade, and she's been possessed by the soul of a dark witch. So the dark witch.
Well, so it's a shopkeeper. She'll be like a main player in like the
Yes.
first night or at school or something like
Yeah.
that. And she gets this new artifact, but
She sells trinkets and items.
she doesn't realize or she doesn't know that this artifact is actually a Horcrux with the spirit and the soul, part of the soul, or maybe the whole soul of this witch.
The last remaining bit of the soul.
The soul of this witch who died years before. We can assume that this witch only made one Horcrux, and it's not Voldemort's Horcrux, obviously. So it survived, but waiting for a host to come around and touch the artifact.
And so for the shopkeeper, she gets these little trinkets shipped to her so that she can sell in her shop. This is one of those trinkets, and then she opens the trinket inadvertently, unknowing what the Horcrux was. And when this happens, the dark witch begins possessing her, and there'll be this big sequence of her trying to fight the dark spirit, but the dark witch spirit eventually takes over, but it will cause damage, maybe wreck a nearby shop, some amount of destruction, this causing a lot of noise and ruckus. The boys run over to see what's going on. By the end of this, the dark witch will have fully possessed the shopkeeper and run away from the situation, and then leaving the boys there to see this destruction in front of them. Then also nearby adults at Hogsmeade in different shops and bars run over to see what's going on, and they find 4 kids with a destroyed shop. So obviously they think that the kids did this. This is going to get the kids in trouble. So the kids will be like, it was this woman, the shopkeeper, she destroyed it, we saw it all. They'll go to inquire the shopkeeper, but the shopkeeper, now fully possessed by the dark witch, plays innocent. Oh, I was asleep in bed. They're going to believe her over 4 kids who are out of bed in Hogsmeade when they should be in the dormitories at Hogwarts. So the kids are going to get in big trouble.
And even though Dumbledore's like, you guys didn't blow up the shop.
He knows they didn't do it.
What the fuck y'all doing there right now? Why are you at Hogsmeade?
So luckily, Dumbledore, knowing that they didn't really do it, he doesn't expel them. He gives them a month's detention each. However, this motivates the boys to try and come up with some kind of invention for them to be able to move around the castle and the grounds without anybody without anybody sneaking up on them. No prefects, no professors, no other adults in Hogsmeade. That way they can avoid being seen. So this is going to be the cause and motivation for them to create the Marauders map.
Now, the Marauders map is one of the best artifacts in the Wizarding world. So the boys will invent and create the Marauders map, and it's a map.
Lily, I think, should give them the idea for how it's created. So tell us how it was created.
So this map was created using a homunculus charm, enabling the possessor of the map to track the movements of every person in the castle, and it was also enchanted to forever repel the curiosity of their nemesis, Severus Snape. Now, there are theories of how they also created it in terms of this artifact called the Quill of Acceptance. Now, every time somebody is born with magical abilities in the Wizarding world, every school has their own way of detecting this. So Hogwarts has this Quill of Acceptance, which makes a note of every witch or wizard that's born with magical abilities. This is how Hogwarts knows who's born as a witch or wizard to send them their letters. Now, Professor McGonagall is in control and possession of the Quill of Acceptance, so they will have to defeat McGonagall's charms and spells and everything to get it. So we figure we'll make an entire episode of a heist of the Quill of Acceptance. So think of like an Ocean's movie, except it's the Marauders stealing the Quill of Acceptance.
That sounds awesome.
It would be great.
And also, I think it's Lily should give them the idea. She's like, oh, with that quill, you could make something that could keep track of every witch or wizard in the area. So I think Lily should give them the idea, and then they're like, oh, okay, let's do this.
Something like
this
that.
This is how we can make a map.
But like a heist episode, and like maybe McGonagall has it secretly guarded by all sorts of trials and magical things that they have to defeat. Like that'd be so epic.
I love it.
And they have to they have to replace it with like a fake quill.
And maybe it takes them a few episodes to finally get the map finished. And then it will probably be completed by like mid-season. But also, so this dark spirit witch is our main antagonist, but we think that it would be interesting to have a rival student helping or aiding her in some way. So we think it's obvious to have Regulus Black as the main Slytherin antagonist. So Regulus is desperate to become a Death Eater. He loves the idea. He wants Voldemort's acceptance. So we think that now that Lucius is gone, Regulus could kind of take up the reins of some leadership possibilities within the school Death Eater squad. So we think that he could eventually figure out what's going on with this Dark Witch. And maybe the Dark Witch needs something that's in the room of requirement in order to come back to full life and full strength, so she doesn't have to possess a body anymore. So Regulus could be on his own, sneaking about, trying to find the Room of Requirement, and then when he does find it, trying to find this trinket, artifact, whatever this object is that the dark spirit needs.
And I think that Lily and Snape are going to help solve the mystery with the boys. You know, Snape begrudgingly will be assisting the boys in the final couple episodes of defeating this evil old witch with Lily, who wants to solve the mystery because this witch is causing mayhem. There's something keeping her at Hogsmeade. She's not at full strength. That's why she's using Regulus, a student at Hogwarts, to get whatever she needs to in order to be free of this area or something like that.
And we think it would be an interesting idea where, since no one believed them about the possessed witch, the boys take Lily, who think they're lying, to prove it to her about the witch. So they'll sneak, using the Marauders map in the cloak, they'll sneak into Hogsmeade and confront the shopkeeper, the possessed shopkeeper. And then they'll be in over their heads, and they'll nearly be defeated by this dark spirit.
We can have like a magical dungeon that they have to get out
Yeah,
of.
it'll be interesting, like a basement. And then what would be really great to have a reference and a tie-in to Lupin, with Prisoner of Azkaban, which is a way that they escape the dark witch, would be Lupin pulling out a really powerful Patronus charm, which will maybe blind the spirit, because it's not a person yet. It's still a spirit that's possessing. So it makes sense that a strong Patronus charm, like battling off Dementors, could affect the dark spirit. And it ties to Lupin and Azkaban teaching Harry the Patronus charm. So maybe Lupin, as a second year, knows the Patronus, which is very rare.
We're in third year, dude.
Third year, sorry. Which is why he's so good at teaching Harry in the third film. So he could use the Patronus charm, help the kids get away. And so after that, maybe during this confrontation, they learned who the dark spirit was. It told them who it was in menacingly fashion with a monologue.
Or Lily figures it out in the library.
Yeah, Lily figures it out. Well, our idea is that Lily, after learning who the witch is, figures out what the witch is after.
Yeah.
That's what it is, because the witch was known for something. And so they figure out, oh, the witch is after this. Where can we find this? But this cool confrontation, Lily believes them after this, and now she's part of the gang solving the mystery.
And Lily and Snape are going to have a lot more of a storyline developing where they're now accepted and invited into the Slug Club. So Slughorn's going to have a main role in Season 3. Lily and Snape will go there regularly to the Slug Club meetings and maybe even go to the Slug Club dance together, the ball. What's he call it?
I can't remember. Yeah, something.
The Slug Party.
Yeah, the Slug Party, isn't it?
I can't remember.
Yeah.
And also, we can have where Lily makes the bowl with the lily for Slughorn on his desk for him to find.
Maybe Slughorn's dealing with some kind of difficult situation personally.
Yeah, maybe.
And so Lily does that to cheer him up.
And also, Snape at this point can't hold in his feelings for Lily anymore and wants to reveal his feelings for her somehow, to tell her how he feels. And we figured he's going to try to make something for her or some way show her how he feels. But the boys spoil it and ruin it and make fun of him for it. And he never does get to reveal his true feelings for Lily ever.
Yeah, unfortunately, Lily never knew how much he loved her. But we could show that love with Snape's actions and his desires, but then the boys ruining it.
Yeah, and this season, Lily's the hero at the end where she figures out how to defeat that evil spirit. They failed their first time, but their final time, they'll have the four of them as well as Lily and Snape will all go and defeat this witch, this evil witch, wizard, witch, spirit, and she knows the ritual that they have to do to stop it. It's like very Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, also, Regulus will never be found out as someone who was helping the dark spirit. He'll keep it to himself because otherwise, he would get expelled. So he needs to get away from the situation scot-free.
Yeah, I think it's a cool season.
That sounds awesome.
Then Dumbledore maybe exploring more with the Deathly Hallows, what's going on with that. And then, again, showing more of the rise of Voldemort through the Daily Prophet and things that are happening in the wizarding world.
We could explore the Death Eater circles with Lucius as an adult outside of school.
Yeah, maybe Lucius stays on as a main character and a main cross-cutting character.
Yeah, I think so, because we can learn more through his eyes since he rose through the ranks very quickly. And also, Narcissa Black will be in her final year at this term in Hogwarts, so she could be, in a way, a leader of the Slytherins in school. Yeah.
Yeah, because we got to get more Slytherins going on. We got to get more Death Eater stuff going on. And I think keeping Lucius around would be good to see what he's doing outside of school.
Through his eyes, because we saw him for 2 seasons. Now in the 3rd season, we know him well. so we can just follow him and see the world of the Death Eaters from his perspective.
Yeah, people starting to disappear, things going on that are weird.
Maybe they have
weather
initiations.
events. Yeah.
In him getting the tattoo, maybe we can finally see him getting the tattoo, the mark.
Maybe, yeah.
The dark mark.
No, we should do that season two.
Opening of season 2.
Initiation, yeah, remember?
He shows his dark mark. Yeah.
No, that's Voldemort gives him the tattoo.
Right.
Yeah,
you're right.
He's like, hey, let me ink you up, bro. Hold still.
It hurts.
Maybe the dark mark is the opening of season 3 somewhere over someone's house.
Yeah. So Narcissa will have to play a major role as an antagonist to the crew.
I think that's a good point. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that's season 3, man.
Awesome stuff.
So that's 3 seasons of our show, The Marauders.
I really like it.
I like it too. It's pretty cool, man. And maybe season 3 they also discover the Room of Requirement.
Yeah, and then there's things later on in the later seasons that we can get to. Obviously, Remus Lupin becomes a prefect. Mundungus Fletcher is banned from the Hog's Head. Also in season 3, the kids will perfect becoming animagi. We forgot to mention that. So season 3, they'll perfect that, and that will actually.
We already talked about that.
That will come into play with them solving the mystery and defeating the witch. Would be them becoming animagi, and maybe Lily isn't aware until they all turn. She's like, "What the hell?" That could be a fun sequence during the final climactic moment. Then also, in season 5, Gilderoy Lockhart will be a new student at Hogwarts. He could be just as snuffy and full of himself as he is, and he could be just like a fun comedic segment for many episodes of that season. Sirius will leave his family officially in season 6 and just live full time with the Potters, so that will be a great opening sequence for season 6.
We could even bump that up to season 5.
Yeah, we can move that up. Sirius sees Bellatrix for the last time in season 6.
Well, it's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, this is when Bellatrix will be put into Azkaban not long after this.
This is when he leaves home.
Gotcha.
This is the last time he sees her until she kills him.
A dramatic part of season 6 will be James Potter horribly humiliating Snape, doing the Levi Corpus spell and embarrassing him in front of everybody, which will lead to Snape angrily calling Lily a mudblood, severing their friendship forever. Season 7, there's actually a fun story. Can you tell us about Remus, Sirius and James?
Yeah, there's this little short story about James and Sirius. We can assume they get up to no good together outside of school as well in the summer breaks. And Sirius has his motorcycle, and they get chased by a couple Muggle police officers, but then they also get attacked by what we can assume could be Death Eaters. We could create Death Eaters, so we can make outside of school James and Sirius, they're starting to like join crews of like stopping Death Eaters, we can assume. So maybe there's a rivalry going
I also
on.
think Hagrid should have a great connection with them, because Sirius actually gives Hagrid his motorcycle not long after these events.
True.
So I think Sirius and Hagrid should have a really close friendship. And
like they
bonding.
They party together.
Yeah, like they get along a lot.
They go to Rolling Stones concerts together.
Exactly. So
not Hagrid.
Legit. So I think it's important to get Hagrid in there for these later years and having a very close bond with James and Sirius, but mostly Sirius, because Sirius left him his motorcycle.
Yeah. He didn't leave it. He let him borrow it to deliver Harry to in Uncle's house.
Well, no, he left it to Hagrid, but when he was sent to Azkaban.
No. So Hagrid bumped into Sirius with his motorcycle when they discovered that the Potters were attacked. Then Sirius let him borrow his motorcycle because
that's it.
To go.
But you're right. But they should still have a close bond.
Yeah, for sure. Season 7 also, we have James and Lily become head boy and head girl. They also start dating. We can have like some cameos with great characters like Newt Scamander come in as well. Lily and James. Then the final season, Lily and James are married. Regulus dying in the sea cave. Then I think the show should end with Order of the Phoenix being photographed.
It's great. It's good stuff, man. I love it. I want to watch it.
But then we got to get stuff with like Barty Crouch Jr. in there. Regulus Black as his rise to being a well-ranked Death Eater at school and outside of school as well, getting up to no good.
Yeah, they would become villains in later seasons for sure.
But to be close with Voldemort, to know his secret, like he would have had to discover him. So maybe around his last year at school or the kids' last year at school, Regulus is starting to change allegiances.
And we could even have, a villainous Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher who is trying to help the Death Eaters in their cause. Sure. That would be an interesting idea. Also, we could get Mad-Eye Moody in a season, for sure. That'll be fun to see. So, I mean, there's so much room to throwing in things that we love from the Potter series into the Marauder series.
There's a lot of mining of canon we can do, as well as making shit up, which should be fun. But that basically, it's like wraps our show, right?
I mean, I want to watch this, honestly. Honestly.
I mean, is there anything else?
No, I think that's all we got, honestly. Like, Oh, Sirius Black is a ladies' man.
Yeah.
And so Sirius Black will always be dating like a new girl every year.
Yeah. So that's what he's described as in the book, is popular with the girls.
Yeah. So you got to have that in there.
He's always snogging somebody. I mean, he's got the locks, man. He's got the hair and everything, and the charm. So he's like the more immature, charming one, but very loyal. And then James is the arrogant one.
Yeah.
But they both prize loyalty above anything else in friendship. But yeah, that's our show. So Warner Brothers, let us know
if you want us to show run a Marauder show.
If you want to make the most popular show in the history of television, just give us like $100 million a year.
Sounds pretty fire.
We'll do it. I mean, come on.
We forgot to mention that the last episode will end with Dumbledore having the cloak as well. Yeah.
Well, no, he doesn't get the cloak till later in 1980.
In 80? Okay.
No, the end. It ends the
You're
photo
right.
of the
Yeah.
Order of the Phoenix.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah.
just Dumbledore will be there. Yeah.
He'll be like, "What's up?"
You're moving on. It's when they go into hiding, he gives them the cloak.
That's right.
All right, that wraps our fan fiction called The Marauders, a TV series outlined and written by Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Warner Brothers, if you're listening, please give us $100 million and we can make this epic show.
You won't be disappointed.
You won't be. It's going to be sick. Definitely become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Leave those 5-star ratings on Apple and Spotify, as well as you can share this with all of your friends and family members who love Harry Potter, who love movies. Let them know that there's this incredible fan fiction that we came up with. We'd appreciate it so much.
Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Cody Moen, Andrew Hagan, Becca Keene, Benjamin Cook, Calvin Murphy-Griggs, Nicholas Martin, Darian Singleton, Tyler McFly, Andrew Hagan. Our chosen one patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.